Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 142. We are less than 48 hours away from the Santa Fe trip. It's been a long time coming. It pained me beyond measure to delay it the first time around, but it was prudent considering I was developing a source and speaking with a source who was giving me more ammunition, so I didn't go off half-cocked and waste all of my bullets. You like that analogy? Well, I'm down there. So it was worthwhile, but it seems like it's taken forever for this month to pass so I could actually get started down there. And the reason I'm going to New Mexico, the reason I chose the Zorro Ranch, is because it's still shrouded in mystery. We don't know anything about this place, really. Oh, sure, we've heard some blurbs, and we've scratched the surface, but we don't know much about Zorro Ranch, and believe me, I've been digging for information. You know, there's a few articles, some people have covered certain things that went on down there, the broader picture of it, but I want to get into the nuances of it. I want to get into the brass tacks. I want to know who was coming and going. I want to know if people who have said they have never been to that ranch have actually been there and have been spotted by eyewitnesses from Stanley, New Mexico, or Santa Fe, New Mexico, or maybe even employees of Jeffrey Epstein's. Who knows? Who knows what we're going to unwrap when we get down there, folks? All I can tell you is this. I'm going to hit the ground running, and I'm going to shake a bunch of trees, and I'm going to have my fat yap moving, because there are questions that I have, and there's been no legitimate answers for any of them in regards to Zorro Ranch. Like, for instance, why has it not been raided? Why are people still working there? Okay? It has not been raided, and people are still working there for the upkeep of the property, etc., etc. Now, have all of these people had access to everything that's in that house? What about the evidence that was there? Where did it go? You really want me to believe that any evidence that might have been there is still there? Why was this place not raided? That is a question I certainly have for the Attorney General's office, and maybe they'll have a legitimate answer for me. We'll see. We will see what we see when we get down there, but one thing I can promise you this, is my big fat is going to be running, and I'm going to be asking questions, because it's like a blackout in Santa Fe. There's like a blackout over New Mexico, and we haven't heard nowhere near the in-depth detail that we have heard about New York or the Virgin Islands or Florida. So I think it's time that, we get on the ground there and we see what's what. And of course, I can't promise any groundbreaking, breaking news reports or anything like that. But what I can promise you is this. I'm going to shake some trees, and I have a couple of things lined up that's going to, at the very least, add some context and put a little meat on the bone. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I love more meat on the bone. The more context that we have, the bigger the picture, the better the quality of the picture, then the more able we are to put together a proper opinion of what's going on, right? As opposed to just getting half-truths or partial answers or anything like that. If we can add context, then we always want to add context and depth to these sort of things. And that's the main motivation for me going to Santa Fe, because nobody has answered my questions sufficiently enough. So I'm going to have to get down there on the ground myself, and you know what they say, right? If you want a job done, do it yourself. All right, so on to tonight's articles. We have a very short one from The Sun, and there's another one from The Express. So we'll start with the one from The Sun first. Headline, Prince Andrew faces being questioned by the U.S. Virgin Islands top lawyer. See, I told you I'd get back to the Virgin Islands. The author, James Beale. It was produced on February 24th. U.S. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George refused to rule out speaking to the Duke of York. Miss George stonewalled when asked specifically about him in her investigation into Epstein's child sex trafficking. Well, let me tell you what, folks. With the new evidence that's coming out with Steve Scully, and with as aggressive as Denise George has shown herself to be in this case, with the way she's throwing around her power down there when it has to do with Epstein's estate, you have to believe that she's going to want to talk to, the Prince of Punk asses, right? You have to believe that that's something she certainly wants to line up. Especially, it would get her name in the paper more, and it certainly looks to me like she's a glory hound. But she added, "We target evidence. The evidence may take us to people, but we target the evidence. We see where the evidence leads us." Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about covering this case as well, to be honest with you. Wherever the evidence leads is where I'm going, right? It's leading me around by my nose at this point. So wherever the evidence lands, then that's where I'm going with scorched earth, and that's who I'm going to eviscerate. Because enough is enough. Enough is enough of these people getting by. Enough is enough of these people not being criticized. Enough is enough of all of these people thinking that they're going to get away with their heinous behavior, because they're not. Not this time. Enough is enough. It comes after witness Steve Scully told The Sun on Sunday he saw Andrew, 60, kissing and groping Virginia Roberts on Little St. James. And we talked about that earlier. We talked about how Steve Scully came forward and he said he's willing to talk to the authorities, willing to go under oath, and says he knows what he saw, and he knows that after seeing pictures that this was Virginia Roberts. The IT contractor decided to speak out after the royal said he could not remember meeting Virginia. The Duke denies any wrongdoing. So that's a little short article from The Sun, and I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was important to talk about, because we know that Denise George likes to get her name in the paper right now in this case, right? We know that she's taking, a big step into the spotlight when it comes to this Jeffrey Epstein prosecution and, trying to put all these pieces together. And we also know, at least in my opinion, what it looks like to me is it looks like she's gearing up to try and get money for the Virgin Islands and take food off of the table of these survivors. And that is where my problem with her comes in. So I'm very hard pressed to believe that she has proper motivations in this case. But if that gets Andrew in front of the authorities, if she is so brazen that she's willing to fire up a subpoena and shoot it off, hey, I'm all for that, right? Any way we can get the Prince of Punk asses under oath at this point, I'm down with. All right, so the next article is from the Express, and the headline is "Royal Bombshell: Military Demand Queen Acts Damaging Andrew from Trouping the Color." Folks, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I have no idea what trouping of the color even means. So we're going to find out together, I guess. Like I said, I don't read the Daily Drop articles until I read them with you. That way the reactions are visceral. But, I mean, forgive me for being a stupid American, but I have zero idea what trouping the color even means and why it's significant. So let's jump into this article and see if Clive Hammond, that's the man who wrote the article, by the way, will let us know exactly what trouping the color means. Senior military figures have reportedly told the Times that under fire Andrew, the Prince of Punk asses, should not make any form of appearance at the annual event on June 13th. I like these military figures so far. And like I was saying before about the whole entire admiral promotion, you think these military guys are happy with this guy getting this kind of promotion? He didn't do the hard work to become an admiral, put in the significant time to become an admiral, and just because he's a Windsor, he becomes an admiral overnight? I'm glad he didn't get that promotion either. And you can't tell me that the people that have actually earned those roles through their hard work, sweat, and tears don't feel a bit of animosity towards the Prince of Punk asses. Prince Andrew was forced to take a step away from royal family life after his controversial appearance on BBC Newsnight last year. He was appearing on the show to speak about his relationship with disgraced pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And we all know, forget a car crash, right? It was like the Hindenburg having an accident. It was like the Hindenburg crashing instead of a car crash. That's too nice for what exactly occurred during that interview. He was utterly and completely outed as a fraud during that interview. And now, a source has said, Prince Andrew should be axed from this year's military celebration. They said, Prince Andrew's participation in the event would very likely and unfairly damage the reputation of the Queen and the monarchy, and he's already stirred up enough problems for them. Wow, this is the military coming out in defense of the monarchy, I guess, at this point. The source in the military it even sees how terrible it looks. The optics are so bad for the royals that he's like, you know what? Forget it. I have to pipe off and I have to say something before they even have more egg on their face. I mean, look, it's obvious to me that the queen is completely and utterly tone deaf when it comes to Andrew, and he's certainly her favorite boy. And I don't think that the queen would ever abandon this kid at this point, to be honest with you. That's what it's looking like to me. And just on a note, Prince Andrew in this picture, in this article, looks like Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul, Saul Goodman's brother, Jimmy McGill's brother. He looks exactly like him in this picture. However, the Times says insiders believe this to be unrealistic. Trouping the color is a ceremony which is performed by regiments of the British and Commonwealth armies. All right, so here's the explanation of what the trouping the color actually is, because I have zero clue what any of these English customs are. They're, the little things they do with the royalty. I had no idea about hanging the Union Jack or ringing the bells, or when I hear about ringing the bells and I think about a monarchy, it's either because, a prince has been born or a king has died or something like that. Not because it's this guy's birthday, but okay. I guess you get the bells rung for you if you're a royal and it's your birthday. And I guess you get to troop the colors as well. Weird. The traditional event dates back to the 17th century. Once the parade returns to Buckingham Palace, members of the family stand out on the premises balcony. There they watch on as a 41-gun salute by the King's Troop in Green Park is carried out. This is just like weird, like ceremonial type stuff that is foreign to Americans. Now, I'm sure there's some Americans that are listening to the podcast that are like into the monarchy, because there are a lot of Americans that are like really into the British royal family. And if that's your thing, cool. I'm not denigrating it by any means. I just have no idea what any of this stuff means, trooping of the color, or even when I first started covering the case, like when you said, oh, I don't even wear that kit around town. I was like, well, I had to look it up. What the hell is a kit? Anyway. Then the Queen and the family watch on as the RAF conduct a flypast. It comes as Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were accused of ostracizing themselves from the family rather than building bridges with their fellow royals after they published a bombshell new statement on their website. All right, so it looks like this next paragraph is about Prince Harry and his wife, and I'm not reading any of that. So that was the extent of the article there. After it was let's see here. Yeah, okay, so that was the end of the pertinent stuff to what we're talking about, and the article goes on a bit about, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and stuff that's really doesn't pertain to what we're talking about. So if you're interested in that portion of it, obviously, there's like 2 or 3, maybe 5 paragraphs after what I was reading about the trooping of the color ceremony. It goes into some stuff about Meghan Markle, and they tie into that, blah, 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 blah. But that has nothing to do with what we talk about here. I try not to dive off of topic too much. But look, the trooping of the color, I guess it's a big deal for a guy like Prince Andrew. I guess it's like, ceremonial type deal that his father has done, and before him, whoever was in charge of the Grenadiers did it, blah, blah, blah. But the military has the right of it. There is no reason why Prince Andrew, the Prince of Punk Asses, should be involved in any sort of ceremony where he is being cheered, basically, right? He should just take a step back, go sit in your little cottage house, whatever it is you live in, and do whatever it is you royal weirdos do when you're not in public. Because the public doesn't want to see you, Prince of Punk Asses. The public wants nothing to do with you. I bet you if there was a poll taken over in England right now, and of course I have no information to back this up, this is just my guess. If you were to take a poll and you were to poll the average English citizen, I would bet you upwards toward 65-70% of people want to see Andrew speak to the FBI. They want to see him be subpoenaed. They want to see him speak on his own free will, but they want to see him speak to the FBI. The people in England have had enough too. From the emails I've received from the listeners across the pond, people have had enough of these morons. People have had enough of Prince Andrew. People have had enough of all of it. And guess what? I think 2020 is that year. I think 2020, my dad and I always talk about how it's going to be the American spring. And I don't mean the same way over like in the Middle East, right? I don't mean like revolutions or anything like that. I'm talking about a revolution of the mind, a revolution of thought, a different way of thinking about things, a different way of going about collecting your news that you trust. Because one thing is for sure, and one thing just about everybody can agree on at this point, is the media has lost all credibility. And in this upcoming year, this year of 2020, I think we're going to see great change on a large, multi-continental scale, folks. And I truly believe that people like Prince Andrew and others like him, their days of running their operations without anybody being the wiser are over, because the complicity of the media no longer provides them with the cover that they need to truly do the things that they have always gotten away with. And now the shade has been pulled back and the sunlight is shining right in for everybody to see. All right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow morning with the usual morning update and the daily drop. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. If you enjoy the content and you like my work, you can help support the podcast by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed your weekend, and I will talk to you all in the morning.